Hey guys, Nerdchilles here. Today we're gonna do a full 20-minute workout while running down episode 2 of The Last of Us. So, let's get to it. All right guys, we'll be running down the episode in just a minute here, but before we do, we wanna get our heart rate up and kind of get into our workout. So, in the meantime, we'll just kind of watch some of the scenes from the game in the background from what took place during episode 2. Now, let's get started with jumping jacks. We're gonna do 100 of them here to make sure that we're getting our heart rate up. So, let's go. Whew. All right, got our heart rate nice and high. Now we're gonna jump into our next thing, which is gonna be 50 sit-ups. Let's do it. All right, now we're gonna rock our 50 sit-ups. While you're doing this, kind of a helpful tip could be to gently place your fingertips on your abs so you feel them getting tight every time you're going up. That way you know that those are the muscles that you're working and you're actually flexing your abs instead of using your legs or muscles in your back to lift yourself up. Okay, so we're gonna do 50 of these while we keep watching the game. Let's go. All right guys, let's jump in here with some lunges. And as we do, let's talk about the opening of the episode. So I thought the opening was awesome. I loved in the first episode with kind of the old TV show interview. I thought that really set the tone. It made it nice and creepy while still informing the viewer. And the flashback to 2003 and kind of those early infections did the same kind of thing. I mean, when that doctor was in the lab she pulls out the little tendrils out of that person's mouth. Oh my God, so freaky. And there's a wonderful parallel to the end of the episode then, with Tess dying by that weird tendril kiss. The creepiest freaking thing ever. My God, it's just like the most horrifying French kiss I've ever seen in my life. But great parallel in terms of, ensuring that the fungus really remained like the primary character throughout that episode, right? And that those tendrils remained that focus. So thought that was really good. And then jump into Ellie, in that beautiful kind of little knoll in this burnt out building. I just thought that was really cool. Reminded me a lot of like Aerith from Final Fantasy VII when she's picking flowers in like that old decrepit church building. Similar kind of vibe, right? Where you almost have this like apocalyptic princess kind of view. But then it's great. Jumps into normal Ellie and Joel banter. I mean, even early on here, we have Joel hesitant, unsure if Ellie's really infected. And of course, Tess kind of urging him along. But you already start to see that play between them. I think jumping ahead a little, really love then when they go into the hotel with the water and just that back and forth about there not being swimming pools in the QZ, and then Joel jumping in and only goes up to his knees, right? And just love that they both kind of fall into that mode. I mean, Ellie, an orphan, she wants a dad, she wants a protector. And so she's kind of naturally, without even thinking, fallen into that. And then Joel, even though 20 years have just worn him and losing all his family and loved ones, but it's like immediately that fatherhood element, that playfulness we saw with Sarah, it's kind of already, subconsciously coming back out. So really beautiful way to, again, set the tone and give us a lot of backstory about these characters. Just really amazing. All right, good job on those lunges, guys. All right, guys, now we're gonna rock some dumbbell curls. And as you've seen in the previous video, we wanna start out with our offset stance, pin our elbow, and make sure that our back is nice and straight. Now, while we can kind of talk about the episode this week. And the scene running in the background is the version of kind of that infamous clicker scene from the game, but obviously in the show, pretty similar and really gnarly. I gotta say, I love the makeup with the clickers. It is exactly everything I was kind of looking for. It's creepy, right? But at the same time, kind of weirdly beautiful. It's kind of weird to say, but I mean, the way that the clickers look, if you don't see them as a hideous monster, but if you just saw like mushrooms like that growing on the ground in the wild, it would kind of look neat, right? Now, obviously pretty different when it's on the head of an infected trying to, rip you apart, but still, I'd say it's interesting to see makeup in kind of this horror way where it doesn't just look scary, it looks like fascinating, But I thought they did a great job with the episode last night with this scene here where they're just going through the Boston Museum, trying to escape, built that tension really well, made it feel like, the odds were really stacked against them, which they were, but did a good job kind of beforehand laying the groundwork for what to expect in terms of the kind of hordes of infected and, the the fungal area is being dried out. So you thought that that threat was gone, and then it was kind of the literal 1-2 punch with the clickers there. So just absolutely nuts, kind of seeing that and the tension of those clickers, just following them around in the room, you know, Ellie barely getting away. And then Joel, when he's holding that flashlight in his neck, and he's trying to kind of reload his weapon, and then he hears that clicker just right there, you know, it just, oh man, it's perfect. It couldn't help but bring back thoughts of like Alien or, you know, Jurassic Park, like you turn the velociraptors right there. I mean, just absolutely wonderful in terms of the kind of staging and the build and the ebb and flow in that scene, where it's kind of these monstrous, intense moments, frantic scrambling, trying to fight them off, but then at the same time, you know, still kind of barely outpacing them. Just really, really good. Wonderful choreography throughout as well. And then, of course, we'd be remiss without talking about the fact that the kind of red herring there after that scene, right? Where Ellie's wounded, and you kind of think that's it. You know, Tess kind of tells him, you know, tells Joel that he just kind of needs to be happy for once. Kind of that, we kind of see later on that this was some of that, almost like a dying wish for Tess to leave him with, that he would just kind of see some optimism, you know? But really interesting, just kind of that dichotomy that gets played out throughout that portion of that episode. So we're gonna switch right here. I've been doing a horrible job keeping track. We're gonna do one more set of 10 on each side. I'm sure that my sets have not been 10 because I've been talking a bunch here, but that's okay. I'll switch, we'll do one last over here. All right, there we go. Good job, guys. All right, let's get some squats, and now we'll talk about this scene. So, you know, having the show follow the game so closely is great because we know what's coming, but I also love the various twists that they're taking. You know, the twists on how people get infected, that's been a really cool difference, but this scene was great too. Of course, we still have Tess getting infected, and some of the same lines, you know, verbatim from what's in the game to what's in the episode. And so fantastic job with that parallel. But this version in the game was great, but made sense with the military in the game. In the TV show, I thought it was awesome how instead they played more into the hive mind of those who are infected, and that swarm is coming, and oh man, just that tension is really there, right? The tension of Joel doesn't want to be pushed further into this kind of de facto place of fatherhood again, yet he has to. And Ellie thought that she was done with these guys and going with the Fireflies, someone who she doesn't necessarily like, but maybe trusts a little bit more. But then obviously with Tess, she knows she's infected. She knows her time is limited. The incubation period in the show seems to be, you know, sometimes less than an hour. So for her, she knows that every minute counts. And so her decision to sacrifice herself to kill the Horde, that would be great in and of itself. But then the way that it happens, the Horde bursts in, She's unable to get that lighter, right? And you can see, it's interesting, the horde already is running past her, like the fungus in her is starting to take over so much that they almost don't even notice at first that she's a person. And then that one guy, Creepy Joe, I don't know what to call him, he stops and sees her and, you know, goes over and does the super creepy ass tendril kiss. Just the, oh my God, so disgusting. It's like trying to imagine what that would be like if someone put an entire thing of like dental floss in their mouth and tried to kiss you, like, oh my God, all right. Anyway, but just, I thought that was so good though with Tess, how you see that, like the fungus is taking over it. She's not fighting back. He's not attacking her. It's like already the fungus is kind of connecting and communing with itself. And you can see it kind of taking over her waking state. You know, she's kind of relinquished control, and the only way that she can find to fight back is just down to her hip, right? Trying to light that lighter. And honestly, I didn't know if she was gonna get it. So, I mean, I just thought that was just wonderful, wonderful writing. Just different variation on Tess, right? She seemed a lot more grizzled, a lot less optimistic than in the game, but still served that wonderful kind of unifying purpose with Ellie and Joel, and then also kind of helps to act as that kind of wax seal on the life that they used to have and what's going to happen going forward, right? She kind of marks like there's no way to go back. And I think that how they did that in the episode was horrifying, but weirdly beautiful in a way, which I don't often say about a lot of horror shows or movies or games, but I will say that this show is doing a really good job at touching on those elements from the game, where it's like you both want to look at it because it's like kind of amazing how it looks or what's playing out or the emotional tension, but at the same time it's repulsive and horrifying, and all you want to do is kind of turn it off or run from it, right? It's just, the game walked that line so well, and the show is just doing a masterful job in following suit. So, all right guys, that's good for our squats. Now we're gonna hit the elliptical, talk kind of through some last thoughts of this week's episode. All right guys, we're gonna knock out a few minutes left here on the elliptical, and while we do, you know, just gotta continue to dote upon the show. I mean, it's doing a fantastic job. I don't know if I've ever seen an adaptation of a video game that has been this faithful, but also this just kind of bold in its expression of it at the same time, right? Just awesome job. I mean, phenomenal. Walking that line of respecting the fans, but bringing in newbies and adding just the right amount to this world that we really love. I'll say after the episode this week, my wife and I, we were left with this really interesting question, and I want to throw it out to y'all as well. And please let me know what you think about this in the comments. But we were talking about, you know, how unlikely it is the world would ever end this way. But in some kind of post-apocalyptic scenario, I think most people feel like, yeah, you want to survive, right? And that's natural, that's instinctual. You do whatever you can to make sure you survive. But The Last of Us does a really good job of positing this hypothesis that perhaps it's more horrifying to survive than to die if there's an apocalypse, right? Like, you think back, episode 1, or the beginning of the game, Sarah dies, which I can't even imagine. I mean, that's, you know, it's too much. But makes you wonder if Joel was ever relieved in a way that she died quickly instead of becoming like a clicker, right? And then you think of these questions like this episode with Tess, you know, what would be better for her if the fungus totally took over and she gets absorbed into the kind of larger fungal mind, if she blows up right there in the moment, or if 20 years prior she had been standing where the crater was out in the middle of the street that Ellie points out. And you know, it's kind of horrifying in a very existentialist type of way to ask yourself these questions, but I think the game and the show do a really good job of walking that philosophical line. Not really providing you the default answer, but rather kind of just giving you the tools to look at those questions and then kind of draw your own conclusion, right? And I think ultimately that conclusion is supposed to be, if I were to guess what they want to steer us toward, is supposed to be, I don't know. You know, hopefully you wouldn't want to just be, you know, in a bombed city when the world ends. Hopefully you'd want to try and survive. But at the same time, watching the whole world, you know, deconstruct around you, billions of people dying, I mean, those kinds of questions hit a lot harder in a post-COVID world, right? We've all been there to a degree. I mean, hell, if you're working out in your garage like me, it's probably because you got all this equipment during COVID, right? So it's just a little bit of a different question today with the show than it was, you know, 10 years ago when the game first came out. And like I said, I don't know if that's one that is easy to answer or necessarily that we have to find an answer. But I think that a big part of this show's value for society and maybe us individually is thinking through what it really means to survive. What does that mean? Does that mean you just stayed alive? Or does that mean you retained your humanity? And I think that that's a question we're gonna see a lot more coming up, right? If you know the game, as we get to some of these other survivors that are, you know, they make the Joker look like Bozo the Clown instead. I mean, some of the characters coming up are pretty twisted, right? So I think that question will become ever more prevalent and kind of remain at the front. What does it mean to survive? What does it mean to retain your humanity? Those questions, they keep me up at night, but I think that they should impact all of us, molding our ethic, shaping our morality, forming our priorities, so that even though the world isn't ending today, we maybe live with the heart and mindset and love and ambition as if it were. Hey guys, awesome job today. Super fun running down episode number 2 with you while we got heart rate up and got to sweating a bit. Total aside, I don't know if you can hear, but there's a group of kids outside my house. And it is funny how eerily similar a group of kids sound to a horde of zombies. But neither here nor there. Anyway, until next time, high five, subscribe.